You ever wonder why some people just keep winning, no matter what the economy looks like? Like seriously, stock market crashes? They're buying. Recessions? They're expanding. A pandemic? Somehow, they walk out richer. Meanwhile, the average person is just trying to make sure their bank account doesn't hit negative before next payday. Here's the painful truth. It's not just about money. It's about mindset. The 1% think differently. And because of that, they act differently. That difference? It compounds. Over time, it's the reason they build empires while most people build debt. Now, before you roll your eyes and say, "Oh, this is just another motivational rant," let me hit you with some numbers. According to the Federal Reserve, as of 2024, the top 1% of Americans hold over 31.4% of the nation's wealth. Meanwhile, the entire bottom 90%, they share just 30.2%. Let that sink in. A sliver of society holds more wealth than nearly everyone else combined. But here's where it gets interesting. It's not just inheritance. It's not just luck. A 2022 study by Forbes showed that nearly 2/3 of the 400 richest people in the US are self-made, meaning they weren't born into fortune. They built it. So how the hell do they do it? Let's talk habits. Let's talk belief systems. Let's talk decisions that the average person refuses to make. First off, the 1% don't think in terms of hours. The middle class? They're trained to trade time for money. If I work 40 hours, I get paid X. If I work overtime, I get more. That's employee thinking. That's wage slave mentality. And hey, no shame in honest work, but if you stay stuck there, you're playing a game you can never win. The rich? They think in terms of assets. They ask, how do I get this money to work while I sleep? Whether it's real estate, stocks, businesses, royalties, licensing. The question is always, what pays me when I'm not working? Middle class buys liabilities and calls them assets. You know exactly what I mean. They buy a new car, a bigger house, the newest iPhone, and say, I deserve it. That mindset, that's exactly why they stay broke. The car loses 15% value the moment it leaves the lot. The house, it bleeds mortgage interest, taxes, and maintenance. And the phone? It's yesterday's tech by next fall. Meanwhile, the 1% are busy buying cash flow. Second, they're obsessed with leverage. Not physical strength. Financial leverage. Time leverage. Knowledge leverage. Rich people don't ask, can I afford it? They ask, how can I make it pay for itself? That's why instead of saving up to buy a property in cash, they'll finance it smartly. Let renters pay the mortgage, and keep the surplus flowing in monthly. Contrast that with how the average American thinks. They're proud to be debt-free, but that's only because they've been taught debt is evil. What they weren't told is that there's good debt and bad debt. Credit card debt? Bad. 18% APR to buy shoes? Dumb. But borrowing to buy an income-producing asset? That's the kind of debt that makes millionaires. Let me tell you something that'll sting. The average net worth of an American under 35 is just $76,000, according to CNBC. And when you remove the top 10% from that data, the number drops dramatically. In fact, over 60% of millennials live paycheck to paycheck. Now compare that to the average net worth of the top 1%. A staggering $11 million. You're not just behind, you're playing a completely different game. But here's the twist. The rules are available to everyone. It's just that the middle class plays blindfolded, while the 1% reads the rule book. They read books, lots of them. According to Tom Corley's study of rich habits, 88% of wealthy individuals read for self-improvement every day, compared to just 2% of poor individuals. And it's not Harry Potter. We're talking biographies, business strategy, investing psychology. They treat knowledge like ammunition. Middle class watches Netflix. They attend mastermind groups, networking dinners, investor meetups. Middle class avoids uncomfortable conversations about money. And it's not because they're bad people. It's because the system trains you that way. School teaches you how to follow rules, not how to question them. How to obey, not how to lead. You were graded on how well you sat still, not how creatively you solved a problem. But the 1%, they break the rules. Not illegally, strategically. They ask, why not me? Instead of thinking, that could never be me, they flip it. Why can't I start something of my own? Why can't I invest early? Why can't I hire instead of always being hired? Here's another one. The rich don't wait for permission. They don't wait for job openings, perfect timing, or someone to say, you're ready now. They take messy action. They launch before they're ready. Because they know perfection is a trap. Done is better than perfect. Action beats overthinking every single time. You think Jeff Bezos had everything figured out when he started Amazon in a garage? No, but he had the mindset, the obsession, the long-term vision. He thought in decades. The average middle-class worker thinks in 2-week pay cycles. Let that contrast burn into your brain. And lastly, let's talk fear. The 1% feel fear too, but they move through it. They know failure is not fatal. It's feedback. It's tuition. You fall, you get back up, and you get smarter. The middle class? They fear judgment. They fear loss. They fear risk. But what they should really fear is staying the same. So, let's get brutally honest. Most people are not poor because they don't make money. Most people are poor because the moment they make money, they spend it. And guess what? That's not an accident. That's by design. You were trained to be a consumer from the day you were born. From the cartoons you watched to the ads shoved in your face during every YouTube video, everything in your environment was designed to make you want. Want the toy, want the car, want the lifestyle, want the dopamine hit of clicking add to cart. And the worst part? People equate consumption with success. Oh, you bought a BMW? You must be doing well. No, you must be doing debt well. Let's be clear, the middle class is stuck in a loop. It goes like this: earn, spend, earn again, spend more. Even when they get a raise, the lifestyle expands. It's called lifestyle creep. You start making $70,000, and suddenly your $1,000 phone isn't enough anymore. Your 2-bedroom apartment feels too small. And that trip to Tulum? Yeah, it's not a want anymore. It's a reward you deserve. Meanwhile, the 1% are playing an entirely different game. They don't just earn. They accumulate assets. They build systems. They turn $1 into $2, not by working harder, but by making better decisions. Look at real estate, for example. The average American lives in their home. The 1% rents it out and lives off the income. The average American saves money in a bank. The 1% parks capital in assets that beat inflation, like rental property, index funds, or private equity. A 2023 report from Goldman Sachs shows that ultra-high net worth individuals, people with $30 million plus in assets, only keep about 5% of their wealth in cash. The rest? Deployed, working, earning. Meanwhile, the average middle-class household, over 60% of their net worth is tied up in their primary residence. Not only is that house not making them money, it's sucking it out of them every month in property tax, insurance, and repairs. Let me break that down with a metaphor. Middle-class wealth is a statue. It sits there and looks nice. 1% wealth is a machine. It produces more wealth. See the difference? But here's where it gets even more twisted. When a middle-class person makes a financial mistake, like overextending on a car loan, they carry that pain for years. When a wealthy person makes a mistake, they leverage the loss. They write it off. They turn it into a lesson. They have margin, safety nets, and most importantly, options. That's the real power of wealth. It gives you options. It buys back your time. It buys back your peace of mind. Now let's talk taxes. This one will make you mad. The average middle-class employee in the US pays somewhere around 22% to 30% in income taxes, depending on their state and bracket. The 1%, they pay far less. Why? Because their money comes from capital gains, dividends, real estate depreciation, trusts, loopholes, and entities. They don't earn income in the traditional sense. They structure income. They protect it. They plan it. Amazon paid $0 in federal income taxes in 2018 on more than $11 billion in profits. You paid taxes on every dollar you made. Before you even got your check, Uncle Sam had already taken a bite. Why? Because employees get taxed first. Owners get taxed last. The 1% structure their lives around tax strategies. They have CPAs, attorneys, asset protection advisors. Not because they're paranoid, but because they understand money is a system. And if you don't learn the rules, you get played by the rules. Let me say that again. If you don't learn the rules, you get played by the rules. But that's not what the school system taught you, is it? Nope. They told you to get good grades, go to college, and work hard. But here's the kicker. That entire plan was designed in the industrial age. A time when being a good worker made sense. When factory jobs were the dream. When a pension was guaranteed. But welcome to the 21st century. There's no pension. Job security is a myth. Automation and AI are replacing entire departments. And a college degree? Often just a fancy receipt for student debt. The 1% saw this coming. That's why they started building assets before they needed them. They didn't wait to get laid off before starting a side hustle. They didn't wait until the market crashed to learn how to invest. They were proactive, not reactive. And when 2020 hit and the world went sideways, while the middle class was panicking, losing jobs, and standing in food lines, the 1% were buying distressed assets at discounts. Stocks were down. They were scooping them up. Real estate was uncertain. They were negotiating cash deals. In a crisis, they don't freeze, they pounce. Because they understand the principle, wealth changes hands during chaos. You either take advantage of it, or it takes advantage of you. So, how do they develop this mindset? Well, they train it. They don't just hope for a better future. They study economics. They follow trends. They sit down monthly and review their portfolio. They understand the difference between saving money and positioning money, between working for money and having money work for them. And they teach their kids the same way. Wealthy families talk about investing at the dinner table. Middle-class families talk about bills. One family talks about opportunity, the other talks about scarcity. So tell me, which one do you think creates legacy wealth? Because that's the last piece of this puzzle, legacy. The 1% don't just build for themselves. They build systems, trusts, businesses, foundations, things that live on long after they're gone. Compare that with the average person who hopes their kids don't inherit their debt. Harsh, yeah, but real. And here's what should really wake you up. No one's coming to save you. Not the government, not your employer, not your college degree. The system is not broken. It's working exactly the way it was designed to. It's just not designed for you to win. But that doesn't mean you can't beat it. Let's get into the uncomfortable truth most people avoid. If you keep thinking like the middle class, you'll keep living like the middle class. Doesn't matter how hard you work. Doesn't matter how good your intentions are. The game is mental. And if you don't upgrade your mindset, you're playing chess with checkers rules. So, how do the 1% think differently? Let's break it down into something you can actually act on. Not vague motivation, but real mindset patterns you can start training for. Step 1. They see problems as investments. Most people avoid problems. The rich? They run toward them. You see a housing shortage? They see a real estate opportunity. You see inflation? They see undervalued assets waiting to be scooped. You see layoffs and say, better tighten up. They say, perfect, now's the time to hire talent on discount. The difference is simple. Middle-class mindset asks, how do I survive? 1% mindset asks, how do I win? Even during chaos. According to data from the Kauffman Foundation, over 50% of Fortune 500 companies were founded during a recession or bear market. Hard times don't scare them. Hard times create them. Step 2. They buy time before they buy things. Here's a cold fact. If your schedule is packed with stuff you don't control, you're not free. You're not rich. You're just busy. Time is the only truly scarce resource. Middle class trades time for money. The rich trade money to get time. They hire assistants, automate tasks, outsource what they hate. Also, they can focus on what matters. Vision, growth, deal flow. You still mowing your own lawn? That's 2 hours that could have been used to study investing, call a mentor, or build your side hustle. They see time as a tool, not a calendar. Step 3. They think long-term, even when they're broke. Let's say both a middle-class person and a rich person start with $1,000. Middle class? Instant gratification. That $1,000 becomes a vacation, a new phone, or fun money. The 1%? That $1,000 becomes seed capital, education, leverage. It goes into something that will either return cash or sharpen skills. Not always guaranteed, but always strategic. They know wealth isn't made in days. It's made in decades. Amazon didn't make profits for almost 10 years. Elon Musk poured all his PayPal money into Tesla and SpaceX and almost went broke doing it. But he thought in 20-year windows, not 2-week paychecks. You know what the average American retirement account looks like? According to Vanguard, the median 401k balance for people age 55 to 64 is just $89,700. That's it. That's all they have to retire on after a lifetime of work. Why? Because they didn't plan beyond Friday. They weren't taught how. Step 4. They train their brain daily. You want the truth? The average person's brain is rotting. Scroll, swipe, rant, react. That's the modern mental diet. You want to escape that trap? You got to rewire how your mind works. The 1% do that. Religiously. They wake up early. They read. They journal. They listen to podcasts on business, investing, economics. They limit junk media. They curate what goes into their brain like it's sacred. Because it is. Your brain is a garden. Feed it trash, get weeds. Feed it insight, get fruit. Want to really copy the 1%? Here's what their typical mental regimen might look like. 5 a.m., wake up. 5:30 a.m., read 30 minutes. 6 Uhr morgens, Vorkut. 7 a.m., plan day. Focus on leverage tasks, not busy work. 9 a.m., noon, deep work, high-impact goals. Noon, evening, calls, meetings, family, learning. Evening, reflection, gratitude, strategy. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being intentional. Step 5. They don't rely on motivation. They build discipline. You think Warren Buffett feels like reading financial reports for 6 hours a day? Nope. But he does it because he's trained discipline. He's trained delayed gratification. The 1% don't chase dopamine. They chase results. They know motivation fades. So they build habits that don't care how they feel. You brush your teeth whether you're tired or not, right? That's how they treat wealth building. Nomadic. Just boring consistency done over time. Step 6. They accept full responsibility. Want to shift into the 1% mindset for real. This one's the hardest. They blame no one. Not the president. Not their parents. Not the economy. Not the system. Even when it's unfair. Even when they've been screwed. They say, I'll figure out anyway. That's power. That's ownership. Most people waste years saying, it's not my fault. The rich say, maybe it isn't, but it's still my problem. That subtle shift, it unlocks solutions. It forces growth. It puts the pen of your life back in your hands. So what do you do now? You start small. You don't have to become Jeff Bezos tomorrow, but you can start thinking like him. You can cut out financial distractions. You can read one book a week. You can invest $100 instead of spending it on junk. You can wake up an hour earlier and learn. You can track your spending like a hawk. You can start a side hustle with no excuses. You can stop lying to yourself about where your time is going. And over time, you'll start to see it. That separation, that internal upgrade, that flicker of possibility. You'll notice yourself asking better questions. Is this thing I'm buying a liability or an asset? Can I own part of this company instead of just being its customer? Who's in my circle? And are they building or destroying my future? That's when the shift really happens. Not when you earn your first million, but when you realize you can. That's not luck. It's not bloodline. It's not magic. It's math. It's mindset. It's a system. And you can either keep running on the treadmill, or you can step off it and start building the damn machine. You were never meant to just survive. You were meant to build, create, invest, expand, and leave a legacy. But it all starts with one decision. Are you ready to start thinking like the 1%? Or are you okay living like the 99% forever? The choice is yours.